Imagine you have just landed in a brand new city. You know exactly where your hotel is. You have the local currency in your pocket, but you are standing in front of a digital ticket machine and you're just completely paralyzed.
Oh, that is the worst feeling.
Right. The screen is asking you questions, giving you all these options, and you simply do not know the word for what you actually need. I mean, being in a new place without the right vocabulary can leave you feeling totally stranded, even if you are, like, just a few miles from your destination.
It is a uniquely frustrating feeling,
Right.
for sure. You know, hundreds of people are walking past you, swiping cards and catching trains with this perfect sense of purpose, and you were just stuck at the starting line.
Yeah, exactly. Stuck.
In mastering transportation vocabulary, it isn't just about learning how to buy a ticket. It is really about building confidence as an English learner. It's about moving through the world with a sense of agency rather than just pointing at a map and, well, hoping you end up in the right place. When you have the words, the physical world actually opens up to you.
Okay, let's unpack this, because today's deep dive is an interactive masterclass in transportation and commuting vocabulary, specifically designed for you, the intermediate English learner. We are going to help you navigate safely and efficiently and, have some fun along the way.
Absolutely. We will cover everything from tapping a card on a local city bus to understanding the highly structured language of international airports.
Because these words are not just a list to memorize for a test, they are a literal map to the English-speaking world.
And it makes total sense to start that map right outside your front door. I mean, before anyone travels the globe, they have to figure out how to navigate their own city on a daily basis.
Very true.
The foundation of this is public transit, and the vocabulary you use depends entirely on the physical environment of the vehicle.
And this brings up a really common point of confusion for so many learners. There are just so many different words for a train.
Oh yeah, there really are.
You hear people talk about a subway, an underground, a tube, a light rail, a tram. To a learner, a train is just a train. Why do we need all these specific labels? I always think of public transit like a city's circulatory system. It keeps everything alive. But why so many names?
Well, it comes down to function and geography. Let us break down how these vehicles actually operate. So a standard train is generally your long-distance vehicle. Picture-heavy, connected railway cars moving across the country between completely different cities.
Right, the big ones.
Exactly. But when you bring a train into a very dense, crowded city, it has to adapt to the lack of space. If the train tracks are built deep below the ground, hidden under the city's streets, American English calls it a subway.
Sub meaning under, and way meaning the path.
You got it.
But if you take that exact same concept, right, a train running below the city, and put it in London, the vocabulary completely changes.
It does. What's fascinating here is that the geographical divide is so sharp. In the United Kingdom, that system is officially called the Underground. But you will almost always hear locals call it the Tube.
The Tube, which is a beautifully literal nickname.
It really is. The tunnels dug beneath London in the 19th century are shaped exactly like giant, round tubes. Now, if the train does not go underground, but instead stays on the surface and shares the actual city streets with cars and walking pedestrians, well, the vocabulary shifts again.
Right, because it's a different environment.
Exactly. We call that a light rail or a tram. These are smaller, lighter vehicles that stop much more frequently than a heavy, long-distance train.
So the physical environment really dictates the word you use. And to round out city transit, we have the bus, which is the large vehicle driving on a fixed route on regular roads. And then there's the ferry, which is a boat moving people or cars across a river or a bay.
Yeah, and the word ferry actually comes from an old word meaning to carry across.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. So knowing the name of the vehicle is the first step. The second step is understanding the price of admission.
Right. And this is a big one for learners. When you take public transit, you do not pay a price or a cost. You pay a fare.
I have always found that distinction so interesting. I mean, we pay a price for a cup of coffee, but we pay a fare for a bus ride. Why is that?
The logic behind it is actually quite old. The word fare originally meant a journey or a passage. So when you pay a fare, you are not buying a physical object to keep, like that cup of coffee. You are paying for the experience of being transported.
Wow. Paying for the passage itself.
Exactly. And the way you pay that fare requires some very specific phrasing. If you want to travel to a destination and stay there, you ask for a one-way ticket. But if you plan to go there and come back later the same day, you need a round-trip ticket.
And if you are taking that journey every single day for work, buying daily tickets is just a massive waste of time.
Oh, total.
You would ask the attendant, how much is a monthly pass? Which gives you unlimited rides for 30 days. But managing those electronic passes brings us to a massive geographical divide in the English language, doesn't it?
It really does. It is a divide that catches many, many learners off guard. So if you live in the UK or Australia and your electronic travel card runs out of money, you need to top up your card. You would walk up to a machine and look for the top-up button.
Right, but if you walk into a subway station in New York or Chicago and ask a worker where you can top up your card, they might look at you like you're asking them to pour more tea into your cup.
That is exactly the visual. Top-up implies adding a little more liquid to a glass that is already mostly full. In the United States, that phrase is just rarely used for transit. Instead, Americans use the word refill.
Refill.
Or they simply say they need to add money to their card. Refill implies the card is completely empty and needs to be filled back up to the top. It is the exact same action, putting money on a piece of plastic. But the vocabulary is literally separated by an ocean.
Separated by an ocean. I love that. So once you have successfully added money to your card, you need to navigate the schedule. You might ask someone, when is the next train? Or which platform does the train leave from?
Yes, the platform is the raised concrete area where you physically stand to wait.
And while you're standing on that platform, you are really hoping the train is on time, meaning it arrives at the exact minute promised.
Because the opposite of on time is a delay. And a delay means the vehicle is running late. That is the single word that causes the most stress for anyone trying to get to work.
Absolutely. Now, public transit is highly efficient for moving large crowds of people, but you have to surrender your schedule to the city. When you need point-to-point personalized service, we transition away from shared schedules and move to on-demand apps.
Right, moving from the crowd to the individual.
Exactly. We're talking about ride sharing like Uber, Lyft, or Grab, and traditional taxis. Now, the common phrase for getting one of these cars is to hail a ride. I have to admit, hailing sounds incredibly dramatic.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, like something a medieval king would do from a castle window. I hail thee, Uber.
Well, the history of the word is quite dramatic, actually. Historically, to hail someone meant to shout out to them across a long distance to get their attention. It was primarily used by ships at sea hailing other ships.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And in a city, it evolved to mean physically waving your arm in the street and shouting to get a taxi driver to notice you.
But today, we just tap a silent screen. The app does all the shouting for us. And to use these apps effectively, there are two mandatory terms you have to know.
Very true.
First is your pickup location, which is the exact specific spot where you and the driver will physically meet. Second is your drop-off location, which is your final destination where the ride ends.
And the accuracy of those two locations is critical because they determine your fare estimate.
The estimate, right?
An estimate is an educated guess. The app calculates the distance and the current traffic and guesses how much the ride will cost before you even get in the car. If you accidentally type in the wrong droppings location, your fare estimate will be completely wrong, and you might pay much more than you expected.
Which nobody wants. But, okay, say you get the locations right. When you are actually inside the car, there are a few phrases you might use. You could say, please drop me off at the corner if you want to walk the last few steps to your building.
A very common phrase.
But there is another phrase we need to look at. Keep the change. If I hand a driver a $20 bill for an $18 ride saying, keep the change, tells them the extra $2 is their tip.
Exactly.
But I wonder, if everything is digital and on apps like Uber, Grab, why do we still need to learn a phrase about physical coins and paper money? Why is keep the change still so important?
That's a great question. It is a great example of language lagging behind technology. While digital tipping is super common on apps, traditional cash taxis are still the primary way to get around in many major cities across the world.
That's fair.
Saying keep the change is an instruction of transition. It tells the driver the transaction is finished, and it saves both of you from the awkward process of counting out small coins. It is a universal gesture of politeness that survives even as we move toward digital payments.
It is a bridge between the old way of paying and the new. I like that. All right, so we have navigated the local city streets, but eventually you might want to cross a country or an ocean.
The big trips.
Yes. The stakes and the stress levels are much higher at an airport. Getting on an airplane requires a completely different, highly structured set of vocabulary. To me, it's almost like a high-stakes video game.
A video game? How so?
Well, airport vocabulary is strict because aviation is strict, right? The words guide you through a very specific sequence of physical barriers. You have to pass levels. The first barrier is check-in.
Ah, I see what you mean, yes. You walk through the front doors of the airport, and check-in is where you prove you are supposed to be there. You are checking your name off their list, and usually you are checking your heavy bags by handing them over to the airline staff so they can put them onto the plane.
And completing that process, clearing that level, earns you your most vital document, your golden ticket, the boarding pass.
The golden ticket, exactly.
And I love the history behind the word boarding. It is another example of old language surviving in modern technology. We board an airplane, but airplanes do not have wooden boards.
No, they certainly don't.
The term comes directly from maritime history, when passengers literally had to walk across a flat wooden board to get from the dock onto a ship. When commercial flying began, we just borrowed all the vocabulary from the ocean. We have a captain, a crew, and we board the vessel.
That is fascinating. And that boarding pass tells you exactly where to go next to beat the next level of your game. The gate. The gate is the specific doorway and seating area where you wait to physically walk onto the plane.
You sit at the gate and wait for departure, which is the moment the plane finally leaves the ground, and you look forward to arrival the moment it lands safely at your destination.
Hopefully on time.
Right. But what happens when the flight isn't a straight line? There are two terms used for a journey with a break in the middle: a layover and a stopover.
Yes, these are huge.
To a lot of learners, these sound like the exact same thing. Aren't layover and stopover just the exact same thing? You are just waiting around in a random city before your next flight.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the difference between those two words can actually dictate how you plan your entire vacation. They are categorized very differently by airlines.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A layover is a brief pause in your journey. Think of it like pausing a movie to go get popcorn from the kitchen. You get off one plane, you stay inside the airport terminal, you might buy a coffee, and 2 hours later you get on the next plane to finish the journey.
Okay, so a layover is just a short wait. What is a stopover then?
A stopover is much longer, usually 24 hours or more. Returning to your movie analogy, a stopover is like turning the television off completely, going to sleep, and finishing the movie the next day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, during a stopover, you actually leave the airport, rent a hotel room, and explore that connecting city before returning to the airport a day or two later.
That is a massive difference. I mean, if you think you have a 3-hour layover, but you actually booked a 2-day stopover, you are going to be sleeping on an uncomfortable airport bench for a very long time. That distinction is crucial.
Make a break for a trip.
Totally. Now, we have talked entirely about surrendering control so far, letting a pilot, a train conductor, or an Uber driver take you where you need to go. But what happens to our vocabulary when we demand to take the wheel ourselves?
When you drive yourself, the vocabulary shifts significantly. It becomes much more descriptive, largely because driving generates strong emotions. People feel very passionately about their daily drive, especially when things go wrong.
Oh, yes, they do. Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the most common thing to go wrong is a traffic jam.
The dreaded traffic jam.
A traffic jam is when there are too many cars on the road and everyone is moving at a slow crawl or stopped entirely. The word jam perfectly describes cars squeezed tightly together, leaving no room to move, like fruit squeezed into a glass jar.
And these jams almost always happen during rush hour. This refers to the 2 times a day, usually early morning and late afternoon, when thousands of people are traveling to or from work at the exact same time.
The irony of rush hour is amazing to me. Why on earth do we call it rush hour when it is the one time of day nobody is actually rushing anywhere? Everyone is completely stuck in heavy traffic.
It is a funny contradiction, I'll give you that. The phrase focuses on the intention of the drivers rather than the reality. Everyone is rushing to get home, and that collective desire to rush is exactly what creates the traffic jam that prevents anyone from moving fast.
So true. While you are sitting in that rush hour traffic, you have to watch out for the pedestrian. A pedestrian is simply a person walking on the street or sidewalk. The word comes from the Latin root ped, meaning foot. If you are on foot, you are a pedestrian.
Right.
But eventually, you reach your destination and you have to park your car. This is where we hit another major divide between American and British English.
No. If you are driving in the United States and you need to leave your car, you look for a large paved area called a parking lot. But if you're driving in the United Kingdom, you look for a car park.
And the divide continues when the car runs out of fuel. In the US, you pull into a gas station. Gas is short for gasoline. But in the UK, you pull into a petrol station, which is short for petroleum.
Learning these regional nouns is essential. But nouns like bus, gas station, or traffic jam, they only give you the basic facts of the journey. To truly communicate your experience as an English learner, you must master the adjectives.
Ah, the adjectives.
Yes, adjectives allow you to express how the journey actually felt. Knowing the word bus is only half the battle.
That is where the conversation comes alive. I mean, a journey can be fast, getting you there in record time, or it can be slow. The fare you pay can be expensive, costing a lot of money, or cheap.
A very important adjective for public transit is reliable. If a train is reliable, you can trust it. It arrives on time every single day, and you know you won't be late for work. If it constantly breaks down, it is unreliable.
Two other adjectives that often go together, sometimes frustratingly, are convenient and crowded.
Oh, yeah.
A subway line might be incredibly convenient because it stops right outside your apartment building.
Yeah.
But because it is so convenient, during rush hour, it becomes incredibly crowded, meaning it is packed full of people with no room to sit.
You can really see how an adjective transforms a sentence. Saying, I took the bus, shares a fact. But saying, I took a slow, crowded bus, shares a frustrating human experience.
Exactly. Now, transportation is so fundamental to daily human life that the vocabulary has actually infected the way we speak about completely unrelated things. To sound like an advanced natural speaker, you need to understand travel idioms.
Idioms are so important.
An idiom is a phrase where the literal words paint a picture, but the actual meaning is something else entirely.
Because the struggles of travel are universally understood, travel idioms are incredibly effective for communicating emotion. Take the phrase, in the same boat. If someone says, we all failed the test, so we are all in the same boat, they're not talking about water.
Right.
They mean they're sharing a difficult situation.
If you picture a physical boat that is sinking in the ocean, it really doesn't matter if you're sitting at the front or the back. Everyone is facing the exact same problem, saying, we are in the same boat. Build solidarity in tough times.
Another water-based idiom is miss the boat. Imagine running down to a wooden dock, but the ship has already sailed away. There's a physical gap of water you cannot cross.
The worst feeling.
Yeah, the finality of that image is why we use the phrase to mean being too late for an opportunity. For example, the discount sale ended yesterday. I missed the boat.
My favorite one is very active. It's hit the road. If I say, it is getting late, let's hit the road, I simply mean it is time to start a journey or leave a place. It brings to mind the physical action of a horse's hooves or your walking shoes striking the dirt path to begin moving. It has great energy.
It really does. It shows how travel shapes human psychology. Now, to pull all of this together, there are three overarching concepts every learner should internalize. First is the commute.
The commute.
This is the specific journey you made back and forth every single day to go to work or school. Second is the passenger, which is any person traveling in a vehicle who is not operating it. And third is the transfer, which means moving from one bus or train line to another without entirely restarting your journey.
Now, understanding these words is great, but passive listening will only get you so far. To truly lock this vocabulary into your brain, you have to apply it to your own life.
Absolutely. Active practice is key.
We have a specific framework from our sources today to help you do this. It's called the 4-Sentence Learning Challenge. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We want you to visualize your own daily commute right now and fill in the blanks.
This exercise forces you to use the nouns, the numbers, the adjectives, and the activities we have discussed today. Here is the structure. Sentence 1, I usually go to work or school by, and you insert your vehicle.
Okay, got it.
Sentence 2, my commute takes about, insert number, minutes. Sentence 3, I like or dislike this way of traveling because, insert your reason or adjective. And sentence 4, during my journey, I usually insert your activity.
Let's look at a perfect example of how this sounds when put together. What does a finished challenge look like?
A completed challenge would sound exactly like this. I usually go to work by subway. My commute takes about 30 minutes. I like this way of traveling because it is very reliable. During my journey, I usually listen to the Jack and Lillian podcast.
Listening to the Jack and Lillian podcast on a reliable 30-minute subway commute. That is a fantastic application. When you connect vocabulary to your own reality, your brain categorizes it differently. It stops being a tedious list of words to memorize for a test and starts being a practical tool you use to explain your actual life to other people.
That is the ultimate goal of language acquisition. You are building the ability to share your reality. I strongly encourage you to fill in those 4 blanks for yourself today. Really, speak the sentences out loud.
We have covered a lot of ground today. We started by learning to pay a fare and tap a card on a local underground tube. We figured out how to hail an on-demand ride using accurate pickup locations.
Which is very important.
We survived the high-stress environment of an airport by understanding the difference between a short layover and an overnight stopover. And finally, we hit the road in a traffic jam, using adjectives to describe just how crowded the journey really was.
You now have a comprehensive linguistic map. But before we finish, it is worth considering a broader implication of what we have discussed. We spent time looking at the sharp geographical divides in this language. We contrasted American subways, refills, parking lots, and gas stations against British tubes, top-ups, car parks, and petrol stations.
It is a clear fork in the road for a language learner.
It is. And it raises a fascinating question. How much does the specific version of English you are learning actually dictate the literal map you are following?
Well, that's interesting.
If you only memorize American transit terms, are you inadvertently navigating a strictly U.S.-centric map of the world? When your vocabulary is tied to one geography, how easily can you adapt when your travels take you off that specific map and into another? It is something to ponder the next time you step up to a ticket machine.
Are you navigating a U.S. world or a U.K. world? That is a brilliant thought to leave on. Your vocabulary really shapes the world you can comfortably move through. Keep practicing those 4 sentences, keep expanding your map, and wherever you are headed next, we wish you safe and confident travels no matter what vehicle you choose. Catch you on the next deep dive.